The diner's fluorescent lights buzzed with a dying insect persistence that Maya Torres had stopped noticing 3 months ago. Some sounds became part of you when you worked doubles 6 days a week. The hiss of the grill, the clatter of plates, the endless drone of overhead lighting that made everything look sickly and washed out. It was 10:47 on a Thursday night in Boston's South End, and her feet felt like they'd been replaced with concrete blocks. She moved between tables with practiced efficiency, refilling coffee cups that had gone cold, clearing plates smeared with ketchup and congealed gravy, smiling at customers who looked through her like she was part of the furniture. Invisible. That's what poverty made you. A ghost moving through other people's lives. Necessary, but never quite real. Maya, table 6 needs their check. Carlos called from the kitchen window, his face sheened with grease and exhaustion that matched her own. She grabbed the slip, calculated the total in her head, $47.83, and delivered it with another smile that didn't reach her eyes. The couple barely glanced at her as they counted out exact change. No tip. The third table tonight to stiff her completely. She pocketed the coins anyway. Every cent mattered when you were $200 short on rent and your landlord had stopped accepting excuses. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. The diner door chimed and Maya looked up from wiping down table 3 to see a little girl slip inside. She couldn't have been more than 6, maybe 7, with dark curls escaping from a lopsided ponytail and a pink jacket 2 sizes too small. But it was her face that made Maya's chest tighten. Eyes red and swollen from crying, cheeks tracked with tears that caught the harsh fluorescent light. The girl stood just inside the doorway, small and lost, looking around with the desperate confusion of someone who didn't know where to go, but couldn't stay where they'd been. No adult followed her in. No parent materialized from the parking lot. She was alone. Maya was moving before she made the conscious decision, crossing the diner in quick strides. She crouched down to the girl's level, making herself smaller, less threatening. "Hey, sweetie, are you okay? Where's your mom or dad?" The girl's lower lip trembled and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "I don't know," she whispered, her voice so small Maya had to lean closer to hear. "I got lost, and I walked, and walked, and I can't find my way back and I'm scared." "Okay, okay, it's all right." Maya kept her voice soft, soothing, the same tone she used with her nephew when he woke from nightmares. "You're safe now. We're going to figure this out together, okay? What's your name?" "Sophia." The girl hiccuped, rubbing at her eyes with small fists. "Sophia Castellano. That's a beautiful name. I'm Maya." She glanced. Around the diner, 3 customers remained, all absorbed in their phones or their food, nobody paying attention to the small crisis unfolding by the door. "Sophia, have you eaten anything? Are you hungry?" The girl nodded, and Maya's heart cracked a little more. How long had she been wandering the streets alone? It was November in Boston, cold enough that her breath should have been fogging the air outside, and this child wore only that thin jacket over a dress that looked like it belonged to a party, not a late-night walk through dangerous neighborhoods. "Come sit at the counter," Maya said, offering her hand. Sophia took it immediately, her fingers ice-cold and small enough to disappear in Maya's palm. "We'll get you something warm to eat, and then we'll call someone to help find your family, okay?" She settled Sophia on a stool at the counter, the girl's feet dangling a foot above the floor. Carlos emerged from the kitchen, his expression shifting from tired to concerned when he saw the child. "Lost kid," Maya said quietly. "I'm going to feed her and call the police to help locate her parents." Carlos nodded, already moving. "I'll make her a grilled cheese and some fries. Hot chocolate?" "Please." Maya turned back to Sophia, who was looking around the diner with wide, frightened eyes. The food will be ready soon, sweetie. Can you tell me anything about where you live, your address, or maybe what your house looks like? It's big, Sophia said, her voice still trembling, with a gate and a fountain. But I don't know the address. I'm not supposed to know the address. Papa says it's safer if I don't know things like that. Something about the phrasing struck Maya as odd. Safer if she didn't know her own address? But she pushed the thought aside. Plenty of parents were overprotective, especially in cities where danger lurked in unexpected places. Carlos slid a plate across the counter. Grilled cheese cut into triangles the way kids liked, fries golden and steaming. The hot chocolate came in a white mug with whipped cream melting on top. Sophia's eyes went wide. "This is all for me?" she asked, like she couldn't quite believe it. "All for you," Maya confirmed. "Eat up. You'll feel better with some food in your belly." She watched the girl eat with the careful attention of someone who'd grown up food insecure herself. Sophia took small, deliberate bites, savoring each one like it might be her last. It reminded Maya of her own childhood, of nights when dinner was whatever she could scrounge from the back of the pantry, of learning early that you didn't waste food because you never knew when more would come. Her phone was already in her hand, ready to dial 911 when the diner door opened again. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. 3 men entered in a formation that spoke of military training or something darker. 1 in front, 2 flanking. They wore dark suits despite the late hour, moved with the coiled readiness of people who expected violence and welcomed it. But it was the man who entered behind them that made Maya's breath catch in her throat. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with dark hair swept back from a face that looked like it had been carved from marble by an artist who understood both beauty and cruelty. His suit probably cost more than Maya made in 6 months, charcoal gray with a subtle pinstripe that caught the light when he moved. But it was his eyes that pinned her in place, dark, intense, scanning the diner with the systematic assessment of a predator searching for prey. Those eyes found Sophia and stopped. Every line of his body went rigid. His face, which had been a mask of controlled authority, cracked open to reveal something raw and devastating. Relief? Yes, but also fear so profound it transformed him from dangerous to human in a single heartbeat. "Sophia," he breathed, and the name came out like a prayer. The little girl's head snapped up from her hot chocolate, whipped cream on her upper lip. "Papa!" She launched herself from the stool, and he was already moving, closing the distance between them in 3 long strides. He dropped to his knees, this man who radiated power and danger, and caught her in his arms, holding her against his chest like she was the only thing keeping him anchored to the earth. His eyes closed, and Maya saw his lips move in what might have been Italian, rapid words she couldn't understand but felt in her bones. "Thank you. Please. Never again. Safe. Mine." The universal language of a parent who'd lost their child and found them again. Maya stood frozen behind the counter, her phone still in her hand, the moment crystallizing into something she knew she'd remember forever. The contrast of this obviously powerful, dangerous man reduced to trembling relief by a 6-year-old girl in a pink jacket. The way his hands shook as they checked her over, searching for injuries, making sure she was whole and real. One of the guards, the largest, with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow, spoke quietly into his phone. "We found her. Tell everyone to stand down. Yes. She's safe." The man, Papa, Sophia had called him, pulled back slightly, his hands framing the little girl's face. "What happened, Piccola? How did you get here? You were supposed to stay with Teresa." "I wanted to see the pretty building with all the lights," Sophia said, her lower lip trembling again. "The one we drove past before. Teresa was on the phone, and I just went out to look. And then I couldn't find my way back and I got so scared, Papa." "I'm sorry." "No, No, don't apologize. He pulled her close again, and Maya saw his jaw clench with emotion he was fighting to control. You're safe. That's all that matters. Never leave Teresa again. Understand? Never. I won't. I promise. Sophia's small voice was muffled against his shoulder. Then she pulled back and pointed at Maya. Papa, that lady gave me food. She was really nice. She said we'd call someone to help me find you. The first time, his attention shifted fully to Maya. The impact of his gaze was physical, like standing too close to a fire. He studied her with an intensity that made her want to step back, cataloging every detail, her cheap uniform with someone else's name stitched over the pocket. She'd bought it secondhand. Her exhausted face, her hand still holding her phone like a lifeline. He stood slowly, lifting Sophia with him like she weighed nothing, settling her on his hip in a gesture so natural it spoke of years of practice. When he moved toward the counter, his guards moved with him, creating a protective formation that made Maya acutely aware of how small the diner was, how vulnerable she suddenly felt. You fed my daughter, he said, and his voice was different now. Controlled again, but rougher around the edges, like emotion was still too close to the surface. Kept her safe. She was scared and alone, Maya said. Surprised her voice came out steady. Any decent person would have done the same. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe, or assessment. In my experience, decent people are rare, especially in this neighborhood at this hour. He shifted Sophia slightly, his hand supporting her with unconscious care. What's your name? Maya. Maya Torres. Maya Torres. He repeated it slowly, like committing it to memory. I'm Luca Castellano. This is my daughter, Sophia. The name meant nothing to Maya, but the way Carlos had gone very still in the kitchen window, the way the remaining customers had suddenly found reasons to leave without finishing their coffee, suggested it should have. Luca reached into his jacket and Maya's heart kicked against her ribs, but he pulled out a wallet, not a weapon. His fingers moved with practiced efficiency, extracting bills that even from a distance she could see were hundreds. He set them on the counter, a stack that had to be at least $1,000. For the food, he said, and for your kindness. Maya stared at the money, her mind struggling to process. $1,000. That was rent with money left over for groceries, for the gas bill she'd been putting off, for the dentist appointment she'd been avoiding because she couldn't afford the copay. $1,000 would change everything for the next month. But something in her rebelled against taking it. This felt like more than payment for a grilled cheese and hot chocolate. This felt like the beginning of something she didn't understand, a door opening onto a world she'd spent her whole life safely outside of. I can't accept that much, she said quietly. The meal was maybe $10. I don't want... You don't want what? He tilted his head slightly, still studying her with that unnerving intensity. Compensation for potentially saving my daughter's life? For showing her kindness when she was frightened and alone? For not calling the authorities the moment she walked in? I was about to call 911 when you arrived, Maya admitted, to help find her family. But you fed her first. His expression shifted, something that might have been approval or respect flickering across his features. You made sure she was warm and safe before involving anyone else. That shows judgment, compassion. He pushed the money closer. Take it, Maya Torres. You earned it. Sir, I really can't. Luca. His voice dropped lower, became almost intimate despite the formal setting. Call me Luca. And yes, you can. Consider it. He paused, seeming to search for the right words. An investment in your future kindness. So the next time a lost child comes through that door, you can afford to help them without worrying about whether feeding them will impact your own survival. The words hit harder than they should have, cutting through her defenses with surgical precision. How did he know she'd been calculating exactly that, Whether the cost of Sophia's meal would mean going without her own breakfast tomorrow? How did he see through her so easily? Sophia yawned against her father's shoulder, the adrenaline of fear finally giving way to exhaustion. Luca's expression softened immediately, his hand moving to stroke her hair with automatic tenderness. "We should go," he said, but his eyes hadn't left Maya's face. "But I'd like to speak with you again, to properly thank you when my daughter isn't falling asleep on my shoulder." "That's not necessary," Maya said quickly. "Really, I'm just glad she's safe." Nevertheless, he produced a card from his pocket with his free hand, setting it beside the money. Matte black with silver lettering. Just a name and a phone number. Nothing else. "This is my private line. Very few people have it. If you ever need anything, anything at all, you call that number." "I won't need—" "You might." He cut her off gently but firmly. "This city is dangerous, especially for women alone. You showed my daughter kindness. That creates an obligation on my part. An obligation I take very seriously." The way he said obligation made it sound like something binding and permanent. Maya's hand moved to the card without her conscious permission, her fingers closing around the smooth surface. "Thank you," she said, not sure what else to say, how else to respond to this stranger who'd walked into her diner and somehow shifted the entire axis of her world in 15 minutes. "No, Maya Torres." His eyes held hers, and she saw something in their depths that made her breath catch. Gratitude, yes, but also something else. Something that looked like hunger barely restrained. "Thank you. More than you know." He turned toward the door, Sophia's sleepy form curled against him, his guards immediately forming that protective triangle around them. At the threshold, he paused and looked back over his shoulder. "I'll be seeing you again," he said. Not a question, a promise. Then they were gone, sliding into a black Mercedes with tinted windows that had materialized at the curb. The car pulled away smoothly, expensive and silent as a shark through dark water. Maya stood alone behind the counter, staring at $1,000 in cash and a black business card that felt heavy as a stone in her palm. Carlos emerged fully from the kitchen, his face pale beneath his perpetual sunburn. "Dios mío, Maya, do you know who that was?" "Luca Castellano," she said numbly. "Sophia's father." "Luca Castellano," Carlos repeated, like she'd missed the significance. "As in, the Castellano family. As in, the people who control half the organized crime in Boston. Protection rackets, gambling, smuggling, you name it. They run it." His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "That man you just fed his daughter to? He's one of the most dangerous people in this entire city." The words should have terrified her. Should have made her want to throw away the card, refuse the money, scrub her hands like she could wash away the contact. But all she could think about was the way Luca had dropped to his knees for his daughter, the way his hands had shaken when he held her, the raw relief on his face that had made him look almost vulnerable. Dangerous men didn't cry over lost children, did they? But even as she thought it, Maya knew the answer. The most dangerous men were often the ones who loved fiercely, who protected violently, who drew lines in the sand and dared the world to cross them. And she'd just saved the daughter of one of those men. "I need to go home," she heard herself say. Her shift didn't end for another hour, but suddenly she couldn't breathe in the diner's confined space. "Can you cover for me?" Carlos nodded slowly. "Maya, be careful. Men like Luca Castellano, they don't forget debts. And they don't let go of things they decide to protect." His expression was grave. "You showed kindness to his daughter. In his world, that makes you his responsibility now, whether you want to be or not." Maya gathered her meager tips from the jar behind the counter, $23.47 for 9 hours of work, and added Luca's $1,000 with hands that wouldn't quite steady. She slipped the black card into her pocket, feeling its weight like a brand against her hip. The walk to her apartment took 20 minutes through streets that felt different now, more menacing. Shadows that had always been there suddenly seemed deeper, more watchful. Had she always been this visible? Or was she just now realizing how exposed she'd always been, a woman alone in a city that didn't care if she disappeared? Her studio apartment was on the fourth floor of a building that hadn't been updated since the 1970s. The elevator didn't work, the hallway smelled like cigarettes and desperation, and her door required 3 separate attempts with the key before the lock gave way. But it was hers. The only space in this entire city that belonged to her. She locked the door behind her. Deadbolt, chain, the portable door brace she'd bought after the break-in 3 doors down last month, and finally, let herself collapse onto her secondhand couch. The $1,000 sat on her coffee table, crisp and foreign next to the stack of past-due bills she'd been ignoring. She should have felt relieved, grateful. This money solved her immediate problems, bought her breathing room she desperately needed. Instead, she felt like she'd just made a deal she didn't understand, signed a contract written in invisible ink. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Luca Castellano. I wanted to make sure you arrived home safely. Thank you again for protecting Sophia." Maya stared at the message, her heart hammering. How did he have her number? She hadn't given it to him, which meant he'd found it somehow, tracked it down with the same efficiency he'd probably tracked down his daughter. She should have been angry, should have felt violated by the invasion of privacy. Instead, something warm and dangerous unfurled in her chest. She typed back before she could overthink it. "She's a sweet kid. I'm glad she found her way to someone who cared enough to help." The response came immediately. "Not someone. You. She found her way to you specifically." "I don't believe in coincidences, Maya Torres." Neither did she. Suddenly. And that terrified her more than anything else that had happened tonight. Maya didn't sleep that night. She lay in her narrow bed staring at the water-stained ceiling, replaying the moment Luca Castellano had walked into the diner. The way his presence had changed the air itself made the space feel smaller and more dangerous. The way he'd looked at her after Sophia pointed her out, like he was cataloging every detail, filing her away in some mental database for future reference. Most of all, she thought about his last text. "I don't believe in coincidences." What did that mean? That he thought Sophia finding her way to that specific diner, to Maya specifically, was somehow fated? The rational part of her brain rejected the notion. Lost children wandered into businesses all the time. There was nothing mystical about a scared little girl seeking shelter in the first warm, lit building she encountered. But the irrational part, the part that had felt something shift when Luca's dark eyes met hers, wondered if maybe he was right. Dawn broke gray and reluctant over Boston. Maya showered in water that never quite got hot enough, dressed in her spare uniform, just as worn as the first, the name Jennifer stitched over the pocket, and counted out rent money from Luca's $1,000 with hands that shook slightly. $650 for rent, $150 for the utilities she'd been putting off. That left $200 for groceries and gas, and the 100 other small emergencies that defined poverty. More than she'd had yesterday, but the money felt heavier than normal cash, weighted with obligation she couldn't quite name. The black business card sat on her nightstand. She'd placed it there deliberately, testing herself. Would she throw it away? Keep it as a curiosity? Actually use it? She left it where it was and headed to work. The diner looked different in morning light, less threatening, more tired. The breakfast crowd was already forming when she arrived at 6 a.m., construction workers and early shift nurses and people whose lives ran on the same brutal schedules as her own. Carlos was already in the kitchen, his eyes finding hers immediately. "You okay?" he asked, concern creasing his weathered face. "Fine," she lied, Yesterday was just a lot. Did he contact you again? Castellano? She hesitated, then nodded. A text. Just checking that I got home safely. Carlos's expression darkened. Maya, listen to me. I know the money is good. I know you need it. But men like him, they don't give gifts without expecting something back. Maybe not today, maybe not next week. But eventually he'll call in the favor. He didn't ask me for anything, she protested. He just thanked me for helping his daughter. Yet. Carlos turned back to his grill, cracking eggs with more force than necessary. He hasn't asked you for anything yet. The morning rush swallowed her attention. Coffee refills, breakfast orders, the mechanical smile she wore like armor. She was clearing table 7 when the diner door opened and a man in a dark suit entered. Not Luca, one of his guards from last night, the one with the scar through his eyebrow. He approached the counter with the same controlled grace all of Luca's people seemed to possess. Up close, she could see he was older than she'd initially thought, maybe mid-40s, with gray threading through his dark hair. Maya Torres? He asked, his voice surprisingly gentle for someone who looked like he broke bones for a living. Yes? Her heart kicked against her ribs. My name is Vincent. I work for Mr. Castellano. He produced an envelope from his jacket, thick and expensive-looking. He asked me to deliver this to you personally. Maya took the envelope with numb fingers. What is it? A contract, of sorts. Mr. Castellano would like to offer you a position. At her blank look, he continued. He's looking for someone to help care for Sophia a few afternoons a week. Someone she already trusts. Someone who showed kindness without knowing who she was. I'm not a nanny, Maya said automatically. I don't have any experience. You have the experience that matters, Vincent interrupted gently. You saw a frightened child and helped her. That's what Mr. Castellano values. The formal qualifications can be taught. He gestured to the envelope. The details are all in there. Salary, schedule, expectations. He's offering significantly more than you make here. Maya's hands tightened on the envelope. Why me? There must be professional childcare providers he could hire, people with actual training and credentials. There are. Vincent's expression was unreadable. But Sophia has been asking for you since last night. She told her father you made her feel safe. In Mr. Castellano's world, that's worth more than any credential. I need to think about it. Of course, take all the time you need. Vincent pulled out a card, identical to the one Luca had given her. This is my number. When you've decided, call me, or call Mr. Castellano directly. Either way, you'll have an answer. He paused at the door. For what it's worth, Miss Torres, I've worked for the Castellano family for 15 years. I've seen them hire dozens of people to care for Sophia. None of them lasted because none of them genuinely cared about her well-being. They saw a paycheck. You saw a scared child. His eyes met hers. That difference matters to Mr. Castellano. It should matter to you, too. After he left, Maya stood frozen behind the counter, the envelope heavy in her hands. Around her, the diner continued its normal rhythm. Orders shouted, plates clattering, the endless caffeine-fueled machinery of working-class survival. Her world, familiar and exhausting. She opened the envelope in the bathroom during her break, locking herself in the single stall that smelled of bleach and desperation. The contract was printed on heavy paper, the kind that whispered money in every fiber. She scanned the terms, her eyes catching on numbers that made her breath stop. $2,000 per week. For 15 hours of work. 3 afternoons, 5 hours each, helping care for Sophia. Transportation provided. Meals included. Health insurance after 30 days. She read it 3 times, certain she was misunderstanding. $2,000 per week was more than she made in a month at the diner. It was everything. The difference between surviving and actually living, between counting pennies and breathing freely. But the contract also included clauses that made her skin prickle. Non-disclosure agreements about anything she saw or heard in the Castellano home. Acknowledgement that she was entering a private residence with enhanced security. Agreement to background checks and security clearances. The language was careful, never explicitly stating what the Castellano family business was, but the implications were clear in every precisely worded clause. This wasn't a normal household. These weren't normal employers. Maya's phone buzzed. Another text from Luca's number. Vincent tells me he delivered the contract. I'm not trying to pressure you, Maya. If you're not interested, no hard feelings. But Sophia hasn't stopped talking about the nice lady who gave her hot chocolate. She wants to see you again. Before she could think better of it, Maya typed back, "Why me? You could hire anyone. Someone qualified." His response came quickly. Qualifications don't mean much when it comes to caring for children. Kindness does. Character does. You showed both without knowing who Sophia was, without expecting anything in return. That's rare. Valuable. This feels like more than just a job offer. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. When his message finally came through, it was longer than his previous texts. You're right? It is. I protect what's mine, Maya, and anyone who shows genuine care for my daughter falls under that protection whether they want it or not. The job offer is real. The salary is real. But so is my interest in ensuring you're safe and taken care of. Call it a character flaw, but I don't forget debts, and I owe you for Sophia's safety. Maya stared at the message, her heart hammering. There it was. The admission that this was about more than childcare. This was about obligation, about some code she didn't understand that apparently meant Luca Castellano now felt responsible for her well-being. She should have been angry, should have rejected the entire thing as patronizing and controlling. Instead, she found herself typing, I need to think about it. This is a big decision. Take whatever time you need. But Maya, while you're thinking, consider this. You're working doubles at a diner that barely pays minimum wage. You're one emergency away from homelessness, one medical crisis from complete financial ruin. I'm offering you security, stability, the chance to breathe without constantly calculating survival. Is your pride really worth more than that? The words hit like physical blows because they were true. Every single word was true. And he knew it because he'd obviously investigated her thoroughly. He knew about her financial situation, her lack of family support, her desperate clinging to independence that was really just dignified poverty. She didn't respond, just locked her phone and returned to the diner floor, where the lunch crowd was beginning to form. But Luca's words echoed in her head all through her shift, during every table she served, every meager tip she pocketed. Is your pride really worth more than that? That evening, Maya sat in her apartment with the contract spread across her coffee table. She'd read it so many times the words were starting to blur together. $2,000 per week, health insurance, transportation, safety. She thought about Sophia's small hand in hers, ice cold and trusting. Thought about the little girl's tears and fear and the way she'd eaten that grilled cheese like it was the best thing she'd ever tasted. Thought about Luca dropping to his knees, all his power and danger stripped away by relief and love. Whatever else the Castellano family was, criminals, gangsters, dangerous men operating in dark spaces, they were also a father and daughter who'd found each other after a terrifying separation. And Sophia had asked for Maya, wanted to see her again. How could she say no to that? Maya picked up her phone before she could overthink it. Called the number on Vincent's card. He answered on the second ring. Miss Torres? I'll take the job, she said, the words coming out steadier than she felt. But I have conditions. Name them. His voice was professionally neutral, giving nothing away. First, if I ever feel unsafe or uncomfortable, I can leave. No questions asked, no penalties. Agreed. Second, I need to know what I'm walking into. I want honesty about what the family business actually is. I won't work for people who lie to me about who they are. Vincent was quiet for a moment. That's Mr. Castellano's decision to make, not mine. But I can tell you he values honesty. If you ask him directly, he'll tell you the truth. And third, Maya continued, whatever happens between Mr. Castellano and me stays separate from my job caring for Sophia. If things get complicated, she doesn't get caught in the middle. Complicated how? Vincent's voice had sharpened slightly, professional interest replacing neutrality. I don't know yet, Maya admitted. But I get the sense that Mr. Castellano's interest in me goes beyond just hiring a part-time caregiver for his daughter. I need to know that won't affect my ability to do this job or Sophia's well-being. I'll make sure Mr. Castellano understands your conditions, Vincent said. When can you start? Maya looked around her small apartment, at the past due bills and the empty refrigerator and the life she'd been clinging to with white-knuckled desperation. I need to give notice at the diner, 2 weeks. I'll let Mr. Castellano know. He'll be pleased. Vincent paused. For what it's worth, Miss Torres, I think you're making the right choice. Sophia needs someone like you in her life. Someone real. After they hung up, Maya sat in the gathering darkness of her apartment, wondering what she'd just agreed to. What world she was about to enter. Whether she'd just made the best decision of her life, or the worst. Her phone buzzed one more time. Luca, Vincent tells me you accepted. Thank you. Sophia will be so happy. And Maya? Your conditions are all acceptable. We'll discuss everything honestly. No secrets, no games. You deserve that much. She typed back. When do I start? Come to the house this Saturday at 2 p.m. I'll give you a tour, introduce you to the staff, answer whatever questions you have. Address is in the contract packet. A car will pick you up if you need transportation. I have a car. A 15-year-old Honda with a check engine light that had been on for 3 months. But still. Bring it then. The address is in Beacon Hill. Parking can be difficult, but I'll make sure there's a space for you. Beacon Hill. Where Boston's wealthiest families lived in historic brownstones worth millions, where people like Maya didn't belong except as invisible service workers. I'll be there, she typed. Good. Sleep well, Maya Torres. Your life is about to change. He was right, she realized as she lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling. Everything was about to change. The only question was whether she was ready for it. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of doubles at the diner and mounting anticipation about Saturday. Maya gave her notice to her manager, who accepted it with the weary resignation of someone who'd seen countless waitresses come and go. Carlos was less sanguine. You're sure about this? He asked on her last shift, his expression troubled. Working for the Castellanos? I'm sure I can't keep living like this, Maya said quietly, working myself to death for pennies. Always one disaster away from losing everything. They're offering me a chance at something better. I have to take it. Just be careful, Carlos said. Men like Luca Castellano, they're not like us. They operate by different rules. And once you're in their world, getting out isn't always easy. I'll be careful, Maya promised. But she wasn't sure if she was lying to him or to herself. Saturday arrived cold and clear. Maya dressed carefully. Nice jeans without holes, a sweater that was professional but not too formal, her only pair of boots without scuff marks. She looked at herself in the bathroom mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Nervous, yes. Scared, definitely. But also hopeful. When had she last felt hopeful? The drive to Beacon Hill took 30 minutes through streets that grew progressively more expensive. Historic brownstones gave way to actual mansions, brick and stone monuments to old money and older power. The address Luca had given her led to a gated property at the end of a private drive, trees screening it from the street. She pulled up to the gate, her Honda looking pathetically out of place, and was about to search for an intercom when the gates simply opened. Cameras, she realized. They'd been watching for her. The driveway curved through manicured grounds, opening onto a circular drive in front of a house that made Maya's breath catch. Not ostentatious like nouveau riche mansions, but elegant in that understated way that only came with generations of wealth. Red brick and white columns, tall windows glowing with warm light, the kind of place that had probably housed Castellanos for 100 years. Before she could even turn off the engine, the front door opened and Luca emerged. He wore dark slacks and a gray sweater that did nothing to hide his lean, powerful frame. In the daylight, he was even more devastating than he'd been in the diner's harsh fluorescence. All sharp edges and dark intensity, moving with that controlled grace that spoke of violence barely leashed. But when Sophia burst past him, running down the steps in a pink dress with her curls bouncing, Maya forgot about danger and power and complicated men. She barely had time to open her car door before the little girl crashed into her, small arms wrapping around her waist. "You came!" Sophia exclaimed, her face tilted up in pure joy. "Papa said you might not want to come, but I knew you would." "I knew it." "Of course I came," Maya said, crouching down to Sophia's level, her heart squeezing at the child's genuine excitement. "I told you I would, didn't I? You're going to help take care of me." Sophia bounced on her toes. "Papa said you're going to come visit lots and we can do fun things together and you'll make sure I'm safe like you did before." "That's the plan," Maya agreed, her eyes finding Luca's over Sophia's head. He stood at the top of the steps, watching them with an expression that made something warm unfurl in her chest. Not just gratitude, something deeper, more complicated. "Sophia, let Maya breathe," he said, amusement threading through his voice. "She just got here." But he didn't move to separate them, and Maya appreciated that. This was Sophia's moment, her joy at seeing the woman who'd helped her when she was scared. Finally, Sophia pulled back, grabbing Maya's hand. "Come inside. I'll show you my room and my toys and the kitchen where Teresa makes the best cookies and—" "Slow down, Piccola," Luca interrupted gently. "Maya and I need to talk first. Boring adult things. Then she's all yours for the afternoon, okay?" Sophia's lower lip pushed out in a pout, but she nodded. "Okay. But don't take too long. I have so much to show her." She ran back into the house, leaving Maya alone with Luca. He descended the steps slowly, his eyes never leaving her face. When he reached her, he was close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and masculine that made her pulse quicken. "You came," he said quietly, echoing his daughter's words. "I said I would." People say a lot of things they don't mean. His hand rose, and for a moment she thought he might touch her face, but he gestured toward the house instead. "Come inside. We have things to discuss." The interior of the Castellano house was exactly what Maya expected, and nothing like it at the same time. Yes, there was wealth in every detail. The marble floors, the crystal chandelier in the foyer, the artwork that was probably worth more than most people's houses. But there was also warmth. Framed photographs lined the hallway, Sophia's gap-toothed smile captured at various ages. A child's drawing hung on the refrigerator in the kitchen they passed. Toys scattered across what looked like a family room, evidence of actual living rather than museum-perfect staging. Luca led her to a study lined with books, a massive desk dominating one end. But he didn't sit behind it in a power play. Instead, he gestured to two comfortable chairs near the window, sitting across from her like an equal rather than an employer. "Thank you for coming," he said, his dark eyes studying her face. "Vincent said you had conditions. I want to address them before we go any further." Maya straightened her spine, refusing to be intimidated despite the surroundings. "You said you'd be honest about what the family business is. I need to know what I'm walking into." "Fair." Luca leaned back, his expression unreadable. "The Castellano family has been in Boston for 4 generations. We started as legitimate importers. Wine, olive oil, specialty goods from Italy. That business still exists and is entirely legal." He paused. "But over the years, we expanded into other areas. Protection services for businesses that the police couldn't or wouldn't help. Loans for people the banks rejected. Gambling operations. Import channels for goods that don't always have proper paperwork." "You're telling me you're criminals," Maya said flatly. "I'm telling you we operate in gray areas that the law hasn't caught up with yet." His voice remained calm, matter of fact. "We don't deal drugs. We don't traffic people. We don't hurt innocents. But yes, by strict legal definition, some of what we do is criminal." His eyes held hers. "Does that change your decision?" Maya thought about it. Really thought about it. "Will Sophia ever be in danger because of what you do?" "I've structured my life to keep her as separate from the business as possible," Luca said. "She lives here, in this house, with security that most government officials don't have. She attends private school under a different last name with guards who look like regular parents. The people who work with me know that my daughter is completely off limits. Anyone who even thinks about threatening her would be signing their own death warrant." The casual way he said death warrant should have terrified her. Instead, it reassured her. This was a man who would burn the world down to keep his child safe. "What happened to her mother?" Maya asked quietly. Pain flickered across Luca's face, quickly controlled. "Sophia's mother, Gabriella, died when Sophia was 2. Cancer. It was fast, brutal. By the time we caught it, there was nothing anyone could do." His jaw tightened. "I would have given everything I had, every dollar, every connection, every bit of power to save her. But money can't buy miracles. I learned that the hard way." "I'm sorry," Maya said, and meant it. "It's been 4 years. The grief doesn't go away, but you learn to carry it." He stood, moving to the window that overlooked the grounds. "Sophia barely remembers her. Sometimes that feels like mercy. Other times it feels like theft. That this amazing little person will never really know the woman who gave her life." Maya joined him at the window, drawn by something in his voice. "You've never remarried. Never found someone else." "I've had relationships. Casual things that never went anywhere." He glanced at her sideways. "Turns out most women don't want to date a single father whose work involves moral ambiguity and potential violence. The ones who do usually want access to power and money rather than genuine connection." "Is that what you think I want?" Maya asked. "Access to your money and power?" "No." The word came out swift and certain. "If you wanted that, you would have taken my first payment without argument. You would have jumped at the job offer without asking for honesty. You would have called me the day after we met instead of making me wait to see if you'd accept." He turned to face her fully. "You're different, Maya Torres. You see a scared child, and your first instinct is to help, not to calculate what you can gain. That's rare in my world. Precious." The intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. "Luca, I need to be clear about something. I'm taking this job because I need the money, and because Sophia's a sweet kid who deserves someone who genuinely cares about her. Not because I'm interested in whatever this is between us." "Whatever this is," he repeated, amusement flickering across his features. "That's one way to describe it. I'm serious. I can't afford complications. I'm barely holding my life together as it is. Then let me help you hold it together. He moved closer, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel his warmth. That's what I do, Maya. I protect people. I provide for them. I make their lives easier and safer. It's not a weakness to accept that help. It feels like surrender, she admitted quietly. It's not surrender. It's strategy. His voice dropped lower, more intimate. You're exhausted from trying to survive alone. Let me shoulder some of that weight. Let me give you space to breathe, to figure out what you actually want from life, instead of just scrambling to make it through each day. God, it was tempting. To lean into the safety he offered, to let someone else carry the burden for a while. Maya had been alone for so long, fighting for every scrap, that the idea of partnership, even complicated, dangerous partnership, called to something deep inside her. What do you want from me? She asked. Really, beyond caring for Sophia. Luca was quiet for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. When he spoke, his honesty was almost brutal. I want to keep you safe. I want to watch you thrive instead of just survive. I want to see your face when Sophia says something funny or does something clever. I want late-night conversations and early morning coffee, and all the small intimacies that build between people who choose each other. He paused. And yes, eventually, I want more. I want to know what you taste like, what sounds you make when you're not being strong for everyone else, how your skin feels under my hands. Heat flooded through Maya, her body responding to his words even as her mind screamed caution. That's a lot. I'm not going to lie to you or play games, Maya. Life's too short and I'm too old for that. His hand rose, fingers brushing her cheek with devastating gentleness. But I'm also not going to push. You set the pace. You decide what happens between us and when. All I ask is that you're honest about what you feel instead of running from it because it scares you. Everything about this scares me, she admitted. Good. Fear means you understand the stakes. His thumb traced her lower lip, and she shivered despite herself. But scared doesn't mean wrong. Sometimes the things that terrify us are exactly what we need. A crash from upstairs, followed by Sophia's voice calling, "I'm okay," broke the moment. Luca stepped back, the heat in his eyes cooling to amusement. I should check on her, he said. Teresa, our housekeeper, is supposed to be watching her, but Sophia has a gift for creative disaster when she's excited. They found Sophia in her room, surrounded by what looked like every toy she owned. The little girl beamed when she saw them, launching into an enthusiastic explanation of each item and why it was special. Maya sat on the floor with her, genuinely interested, asking questions that made Sophia glow with importance. Luca watched from the doorway, and when Maya glanced up at him, the expression on his face made her heart stutter. He looked at her like she was solving problems he hadn't known how to solve, filling spaces he hadn't known were empty. The afternoon passed in a blur of Sophia's excited chatter, a house tour that revealed more warmth than wealth, and conversations with Teresa, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes who clearly adored Sophia and approved of Maya immediately. She needs someone young, Teresa confided when Sophia dragged Luca away to show him something. Someone who sees her as a child, not as the boss's daughter. The last few caregivers, they were too formal, too scared of Mr. Castellano to relax around Sophia. Are you scared of him? Maya asked. Teresa's smile was knowing. I've worked for the Castellano family for 30 years. I changed Luca's diapers when he was Sophia's age. He doesn't scare me. He's a good man doing difficult work in a harsh world. But he's still a man, capable of tenderness and violence in equal measure. Her eyes found Maya's. The question is, are you brave enough to handle both? Maya didn't have an answer. As the sun began to set, painting the windows gold and amber, Luca walked Maya to her car. Sophia had already extracted promises of returning soon, making Maya swear on her favorite stuffed bear that she'd come back Tuesday afternoon. "She's wonderful," Maya said as they reached her Honda. "You've raised an amazing kid." "I've tried," Luca said quietly. "But it's hard being both parents. Hard giving her everything she needs when I'm one person with limitations." He leaned against her car, his shoulder brushing hers. "That's why I'm grateful you're here. She needs more than I can give her alone. Don't sell yourself short. She adores you. And she's terrified of losing me the way she lost her mother." His voice roughened with emotion. "Every time I leave for work, every time I'm gone longer than expected, I see the fear in her eyes. She's too young to carry that weight, but I don't know how to take it away from her." Maya's hand found his without conscious thought, her fingers lacing through his. "You can't take it away. But you can help her carry it. Show her that fear doesn't have to control her. That love is worth the risk of loss." He looked down at their joined hands, his thumb stroking across her knuckles. "Is that what you believe? That love is worth the risk?" "I don't know yet," she admitted. "I've spent so long protecting myself that I'm not sure I remember how to be vulnerable." "Then we'll figure it out together." He raised her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her. Knuckles that felt like a promise. "See you Tuesday, Maya Torres." She drove away with his kiss still burning on her skin, her heart hammering with fear and anticipation in equal measure. In her rearview mirror, she watched him stand in the driveway until she disappeared around the curve, a dark figure against the golden light. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. Tuesday came faster than Maya expected. She'd spent the intervening days in a strange liminal space, working her final shifts at the diner, packing up her apartment in preparation for a future that felt both terrifying and inevitable. The $2,000 deposit had hit her bank account Monday morning, more money than she'd ever had at once, and the reality of her new life finally crystallized. She arrived at the Castellano house at 2 p.m. as agreed, her stomach fluttering with nerves. But Sophia's enthusiastic greeting immediately settled her, the little girl grabbing her hand and pulling her inside with the same joy as before. The next 3 weeks established a rhythm that began to feel almost normal. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday afternoons with Sophia, playing games, helping with homework, reading stories, occasionally venturing out to parks or museums with 2 subtle security guards shadowing them. Teresa taught Maya how Sophia liked her sandwiches cut, which books she wanted read repeatedly, how to redirect her when she got stubborn. And Luca. Luca was a constant presence without being overwhelming. He'd appear during Maya's visits, sometimes just watching them interact, other times joining their activities. He'd ask about her day, her life, her dreams with genuine interest. He'd brush against her in passing, casual touches that felt weighted with intention. He'd look at her with heat that made her skin prickle and her breath catch, but he never pushed beyond what she was ready for. It was a seduction by patience, by care, by showing her every day that he was serious about wanting her in his life. Then everything changed on a random Thursday in early December. Maya was in the kitchen with Sophia, making cookies, flour dusting both of them while Teresa laughed at their mess. Luca was in his study on a business call, his voice a low rumble that occasionally carried down the hall. Normal. Safe. The gunshots shattered that safety like glass. 3 sharp cracks from somewhere outside, unmistakable and terrifying. Teresa's expression went from amused to deadly serious in an instant. She grabbed Sophia, and Maya saw where the kindly housekeeper kept her own weapon, pulled from a drawer with practiced efficiency. "Basement," Teresa commanded. "Now." but before they could move, Luca appeared in the doorway, and Maya barely recognized him. Gone was the gentle father, the patient suitor. This was someone else entirely. Cold, lethal. Every line of his body coiled for violence. "Take them to the safe room," he ordered Teresa. His eyes found Maya's. "Don't leave until I come for you, no matter what you hear." More gunshots outside, shouting, the sound of something breaking. "Papa," Sophia whimpered, reaching for him. Luca crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling his daughter into a fierce hug. "I love you, Piccola. You're safe. Teresa and Maya will keep you safe. I promise I'll come back." He kissed her forehead. Then his eyes found Maya's again. "Protect her." "I will," Maya said, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. He nodded once, then was gone, moving toward the danger with Vincent and 2 other guards appearing from nowhere to flank him. Teresa grabbed both Sophia and Maya, pulling them toward a door Maya had assumed was a pantry. Instead, it opened onto stairs leading down to a reinforced room that could withstand a siege. Supplies lined the walls: food, water, medical equipment, weapons. A space designed for exactly this scenario. Sophia was crying silently, trying to be brave. Maya pulled the little girl into her lap, holding her tight while Teresa moved with military precision, checking cameras that showed multiple angles of the property, speaking quietly into a phone with people Maya couldn't see. "What's happening?" Maya asked, keeping her voice calm for Sophia's sake. "Rival family making a move," Teresa said grimly. "Happens sometimes. The Castellanos have enemies. Those enemies occasionally get brave or stupid enough to try something." Through the camera feeds, Maya watched figures moving around the property. Watched Luca and his men respond with coordinated efficiency that spoke of training and experience. Watched violence unfold in real time, brutal and quick. She should have been terrified, should have been questioning every choice that brought her here. Instead, all she could think was, he has to be okay. He promised Sophia he'd come back. The attack lasted maybe 20 minutes, though it felt like hours. Eventually, the sounds of gunfire stopped. The camera feeds showed Luca's men securing the property, checking bodies, establishing a perimeter. Then Luca himself appeared on one of the screens, looking directly at the camera. His shirt was torn and there was blood on his face, but he was upright and moving. He spoke into a phone, and seconds later, Teresa's phone buzzed. "Clear," she announced. "We can go up." Sophia scrambled from Maya's lap, racing up the stairs despite Teresa's warnings to slow down. Maya followed, her heart in her throat, and found Sophia wrapped around her father in the kitchen. Luca held his daughter with one arm while the other hung at his side, blood dripping from his knuckles. His eyes found Maya's over Sophia's head, and she saw the question there. "Are you running now? Now that you've seen what my life really is?" She should run. Any sane person would run from this. From the violence, from the danger, from a world where gunfire interrupted cookie making. But looking at Luca holding his daughter, at the relief on his face that they were safe, at the lengths he'd go to protect them, Maya realized something terrifying. She wasn't running anywhere. She crossed the kitchen, placed her hand on his cheek, the one without blood, and said quietly, "You're hurt. Let me help." Something shifted in his expression, relief and gratitude, and something deeper. "Maya." "Later," she said. "First aid kit?" Teresa produced it, and Maya found herself cleaning cuts on a Mafia boss's hands while his daughter clung to his side. The moment felt surreal and domestic and completely insane. But it also felt right in ways she couldn't explain. That evening, after Sophia was finally asleep, exhausted from fear and relief, Luca found Maya in the kitchen. She was attempting to salvage the cookie dough they'd abandoned, needing something normal to do with her shaking hands. "You didn't leave," he said quietly. "No. You should have." He moved closer, and she could see the exhaustion carved into his features. That's what today was supposed to show you. How dangerous this life is. How unsafe it would be for you to stay. Is that why you didn't sugarcoat it? Why Teresa took us to that room where we could watch everything? Yes. He scrubbed his hand over his face. I needed you to see the reality before you got in too deep. Before? He trailed off. Before what? Maya asked. Before I fell completely in love with you, he admitted, the words raw and honest. Because I'm already halfway there, Maya, and if I fall the rest of the way, only to have you leave because you can't handle my world, it will destroy something in me I'm not sure I can repair. The confession hung between them, vulnerable and brave. Maya set down the mixing bowl, wiped her flour-dusted hands on a towel, and moved to stand in front of him. I'm terrified, she said honestly. Today scared me more than anything in my life. But do you know what scared me more than the gunshots? The thought of something happening to you or Sophia. The thought of losing this, whatever this is between us, before I even gave it a real chance. His hands rose to frame her face, his touch infinitely gentle despite the violence those same hands had committed hours ago. You're sure? Because once you commit to this, to me, I won't let you go easily. I'll fight for you, Maya, against anyone and anything that tries to take you away. I know, she whispered. I'm counting on it. He kissed her then, and it was nothing like the gentle touches they'd shared before. This was hunger barely restrained, need that had been building for weeks finally given permission. His mouth claimed hers with devastating thoroughness, his tongue tracing the seam of her lips until she opened for him with a gasp. She melted into him, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer despite the logical part of her brain screaming warnings. He backed her against the counter, his body pressing into hers, and she felt the evidence of his desire against her hip. Maya, he groaned against her mouth, tell me to stop. Tell me this is too fast. Don't stop, she breathed. Don't you dare stop. His hands were in her hair, on her waist, everywhere, and not enough. He lifted her onto the counter, stepping between her legs, and the new angle made them both moan. She wrapped her legs around his waist, pulling him impossibly closer, needing more of this, more of him. Not here, he managed, his voice rough with desire. Not in the kitchen where anyone could walk in. You deserve better than that. Then take me somewhere else, Maya said, surprised by her own boldness. Take me to your room and show me exactly what you've been thinking about for the past 3 weeks. His eyes went nearly black, pupils blown wide. You're sure? Because once we cross this line, there's no going back. You'll be mine, Maya, completely. Then make me yours, she whispered. He lifted her from the counter, her legs still wrapped around his waist, and carried her through the house to his bedroom. They barely made it through the door before they were tearing at each other's clothes, desperate and hungry and past the point of careful restraint. That night, tangled in sheets that smelled like him, his body warm and solid against hers, Maya finally understood what Teresa had meant. Luca Castellano was capable of both tenderness and violence, and she wanted both sides of him, the gentle father and the dangerous protector, the patient suitor and the fierce lover. She'd walked into his life by accident, by chance, by showing kindness to a lost child, and somehow, impossibly, she'd found home in the arms of Boston's most dangerous man. I love you, Luca whispered against her hair as sleep pulled her under. My brave, beautiful Maya, I'll keep you safe. I promise. I know, she murmured. I love you too. Outside, the city continued its dangerous rhythm. But in this room, in this bed, wrapped in the arms of a man who would burn the world down to protect her, Maya finally felt safe. 3 months later, Maya moved into the Castellano house permanently. 6 months after that, Luca proposed with a ring that was elegant rather than ostentatious, diamonds set in platinum that caught the light like captured stars. Sophia was the flower girl at their wedding, beaming in a pink dress as she walked down the aisle, scattering rose petals. The life Maya built with Luca and Sophia wasn't perfect. There were still threats, still moments of danger when his business intruded on their carefully constructed safety. But there was also love, fierce and protective, and completely consuming. There was family, chosen and built from broken pieces made whole. And every time Maya tucked Sophia into bed, every time Luca pulled her close and whispered promises against her skin, every time they sat together at the dinner table laughing over the day's small disasters, she remembered the scared little girl who'd stumbled into a diner looking for help. Sometimes the most dangerous choices led to the most beautiful destinations. Sometimes kindness to a stranger changed everything. Sometimes love found you in the last place you expected, wrapped in darkness but reaching for light. Maya Torres had been invisible once, a ghost surviving on the margins. Now she was seen, cherished, protected by the most dangerous man in Boston, and she'd never been happier. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.